So greetings, friends who are gathered together here on the call and friends who watch this after the call. It's July 7th, 2023. It's the middle of summer. And we're very proud to introduce Nidhi Singh as a facilitator and moderator and colleague and friend, really, to talk about something that's very near and dear to her, which is the topic of zero waste. So I'm going to have a short bio and then really invite Nidhi to tell us how she got to this point. And that could be an hour in and of itself. Nidhi is a zero waste consultant and researcher. She's a single parent and has been involved in air pollution, waste activism, and saving urban trees in Delhi, India. She now resides in the North Bay between San Francisco and Sonoma County. So welcome, Nidhi. Take it away.
Hi, everybody. I want to welcome some new people who joined, and I have another Singh who has joined. Thank you for joining. And hi to Carrie. And I think we said hello to everybody. Thank you so much for coming. I'm going to start with a very low-tech, high-tech, low-tech. We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. It's an old Native American saying. I don't know if you can see it. Is it going on reverse? Can you see it? Okay.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. So this has been written by my daughter as she's helping me with my talk. And you might hear her during the talk. So I call myself a older single parent, not because I'm necessarily that much older, but that my child is that much younger. And I'll start by sharing my journey, how my life became all about trash. And then after that, we'll talk about, what kind of garbage and discards we see around us in our community, and really trying to recognize garbage, because that is really a learning process for me, like really starting to see garbage better. And also, where does it go and what's the impact of that? And then maybe we can talk about some little, we're going to see a little movie as well, just 10 minutes, and then also discuss like maybe some actions, small actions that we can take on in our lives. Sometimes I use some jargon because I just did this zero waste consultant certification, and it's a bonus point if somebody raised their hand and said that made no sense. Okay, so I'll talk about how I got into garbage. So I grew up in India and had most of my young adult life in the US, and then decided that it would be great to, as a single parent, raise my child for almost the first decade of her life in Delhi with the support of my parents. And then I was hoping that some of the cultural values would infuse. So I went back to India for almost 10 years and found things a lot changed. There was a lot of cultural values and these simple household things, household remedies and all that my parents were still using. But really, I was hit by the consumerism and advertising and consumption. And really this dual economy of, what are people buying over here? And they're buying, paying huge amount in Western products and everything. And, animal farming and the state of the chicken and meat everywhere. And, so anyway, I was hit by all of that. And then suddenly, I think it was 2016, we had, you hear about these tipping points, and we had a tipping point. Basically overnight. I mean, that's a tipping point. It's just like wham, and you're there. There's no slow rise up. Suddenly, overnight, there was a whiteout. You couldn't see the house across the street. And these are like narrow streets, colony neighborhood streets. And for 17 days, we had this complete whiteout. And it was called the aeropocalypse, is what they called it. And we took over China and Beijing, and in being the most polluted city in the world. So, a lot of parents and people who maybe had the time and the luxury, maybe I should say that, just got out there and started protesting, and I got involved in a lot of activism, and and then was in some ways a very dynamic time, because when you're in a crisis, like we've all been through COVID, when there's a giant crisis like this, everything else becomes smaller, and so we were doing home composting. I remember calling parents in the neighborhood. We were trying to do zero waste, and my mother was like, take that trash out of here, because the lizards are living in it. And I had to move my, zero waste sort of bags of different, segregated things from outside the house and the front door, and then I'd take it up on the terrace, So, and there was a lot of upcycling, we'd be planting in like plastic bags that you got ghee in it, so people were doing a lot of stuff. And then, there's this huge, garbage pile in Delhi. I'm sure many of you have seen this, and we pass it on the way to our family village. Kavita will know as well, Vidu. So it's like basically a mountain of garbage. And there's people who live, in the foothills of it. There's, communities of people and rag pickers and children. And in some ways, in India, there's very exhaustive recycling. Hi, Dad. My father's joining from middle of the night in Delhi. So there's a very exhaustive recycling that happens because people and kids are picking every plastic bag. And I remember, years ago when I was working on the AIDS crisis, children were picking up the needle sharps and, basically, in a funny way, a lot of things get recycled, but we still have these huge mountains of trash just disintegrating, decomposing, sending out toxins, and people living in that. And I don't know if any of you saw the movie All That Breathes, that got, was nominated for the Oscars from Delhi. It's really about the fact that all of us, people, birds, kites, eagles, animals, we're all being in Delhi and everywhere being impacted by the quality of the air and the toxins that are, emanating from these things in the middle of communities. Oh, I forgot to put my timer on. Oopsie, huh? So I don't know how I'm doing on time, Ed. Oh, I can't hear you.
Okay, no worries.
Okay. So, so that's how I got into trash. And then I knew I wanted to get my daughter out of there. And so we're in Sonoma County, which is, for the most part, except for we came here and we had California wildfires, which hadn't been there when I had left the US. So that was a bit of a shocker. And that is continuing for us, for Canada, for a lot of places, and Europe as well. So, and then I, found a zero waste community here, and I got a certification in zero waste after COVID because I just felt like I wasn't doing very much about garbage here. And yes, so there's a lot of resources in the community. If you go to the zero waste zwusa.org, it's really simple. You type in zero waste USA, it'll come up. And it was a really great course. And we had a small group of 4 students, and our project really was working on the city of Berkeley, but we had to present a zero waste plan in a month. And Berkeley is currently developing a new zero waste plan because despite, and they're going to take over a year to put this plan together. So it's just like a test run when you do these certifications, and places like Berkeley are so progressive in all their laws, but even a place like that is having trouble meeting their zero waste goals. So they're redoing their whole plan. So that's my intro. I hope I didn't take too long about it. I wanted to kind of talk to all of you and kind of with everybody, and what kind of garbage or discards do you see around you? what is there any industry in your neighborhood, or is it a shopping center? Like I'm in Sebastopol, and we have a lot of vineyards here, and we have a lot of tourists. So we have actually a lot of discards from the vineyards. We have bottles, pesticides, plant debris, corks, metal scraps, crushed grapes, food waste from workers' lunches, oil, diesel from tractors, fumes, exhaust from machines, pesticides. So I was wondering if maybe you could raise your hand and I could call on, a few people, and we could talk about, where you are and what's in your community, and what kind of garbage do you see? Hi, Mom. Okay. Oh, hi. Okay.
I'm going to jump in, Nidhi, and say, like, I'm in San Francisco, so some of the big industries, I guess, are technology and tourism. I also see great disparity here, and just extremes of disparity, and actually a lot of trash on the streets as well.
Tourism, do you have any ideas about what kind of garbage tourism is generating in your community? Definitely trash on the streets. I mean, you see that, right? You see probably cups and straws and
I think food waste for sure.
Food scraps.
I'm going to let other people speak.
Well, I'm curious, does anyone have any ideas what being a part of Silicon Valley and technology, what kind of garbage or discards are showing up in their neighborhoods?
Well, I can talk about Palm Springs. There's a lot of stuff that is a byproduct of the landscaping industry, which is huge over here. Everybody's got a garden and a pool, or many have pools. And, there's constant, I mean, you'll see 80%, well, I'll say at least 50% of any truck or semi-truck or vehicle you'll see would have, something regarding a landscape company painted on its side. So, you see stuff that comes off, packaging and other things that are used to carry maybe pipes or sealants and things like that. So I do see a lot of that, and I know it just ends up in the rubbish. So that's where it goes.
A lot of packaging, so metal scraps, maybe
of
PVC, a lot of plastic scraps from pipes.
Mm-hmm.
And also maybe a lot of discarded gravel and stones, and discards from renovations, tiling, and sounds like a lot of hazardous substances, glues, sealants, chemicals. Yeah.
Anybody who's doing remodeling is going to, take stuff out and put new stuff in, and I'm not quite sure where that other stuff goes. I know that people do charge to take things to the dump, so I think that's a good thing. If it goes to the dump, at least.
Yeah, it goes to the landfill. That's right.
Yeah. But I'm dealing with a bucket of motor oil that my last the last people who lived here left here, and we cannot figure out a way to get it out of here. And I know it's leaching into the ground. So.
Oh, God. Okay. Yeah. Well, we can talk about that more towards the end of the talk, or even take it offline, because you can definitely
take it offline. I just had to bring it up.
No, there are resources, and you can find a way to dispose of that safely, for sure. Anyone else?
I'd love to. I don't know. Can you hear me? My name is Florence or Flo. little late
Hi,
to join
Karan.
because I was having a hard time logging in. But so I'm actually interested from a very personal level of someone who's trying to be conscious and just going to Trader Joe's and all the clamshells that hold the vegetables or the fruits. Or I live in Pengrove, but I have 2 big bags of clamshells, plastic containers from my father in Tiburon, who's also trying to be conscious, but found out that the Marin refuse does not recycle those plastic clamshells, or the Thistle meal deliveries that it says recyclable, but apparently if you put it in, they don't get recycled. So it kind of horrifies me. And I'm like, I'm trying to be conscious, but I would love suggestions on how do those things how can you recycle those things, or clarity on which refuse places do take them and which do not, and or ideas on how do you buy things if you're not going necessarily to the farmer's market without somehow accumulating more plastic. Because I'm horrified at just how one household or 2 households, or just my dad, these bags of clamshell containers, and I'm like, I'll take them to my house because I think Sonoma County still recycles them. Maybe it's a pipe dream and maybe it's wishful thinking. But so on a very personal level, just the waste that I see in my house is pretty horrifying. Even if I'm trying to I'm super like recycle plastic. It hurts me to see plastic in the garbage. But then when I hear, oh, it doesn't get recycled, you might as well throw it away. Or the whole, my father's, he's really about water conservation. He's like, if you're supposed to like use a ton of water to rinse out something to then it be recycled, or maybe it doesn't even get recycled, but you've used so much water to recycle it. It's like, which one? So where I'm kind of caught in that, trying to do the right thing, but not knowing if I am or how to do the right thing. So if
That's
that could be
fine.
addressed
Thank
at some point.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
sharing, because I think this is something that we all struggle with. We're trying to recycle plastic, and then we're washing, and then we're going, and especially now we had some rains this year in California, but in the drought, which really we are in a 100-year drought, so it's not over. So, and also what does actually recycle or not is a really, and hopefully maybe by the end of this talk, we're going to get some better answers. Hold on a second.
Thank you. Thank you.
Police cars in Sebastopol, so unusual. Yeah, and the clamshells are actually a really big thing, because I believe Marcy's from LA. I believe in LA they do have a company that recycles clamshells, plastic clamshells, and here we don't, and we've all been throwing it in our recycling, right? And guess what? It just gets picked out and goes into trash, and it's an extra fuel dump to go from the recycling facility to the landfill. So so what happens with this, the even subject of garbage is this, it gets stressful, and the thing that I'm hoping that maybe we can try to collectively look at is that this is actually a very dynamic area. Things change all the time. What is getting recycled may suddenly stop because some industry or something will stop, and then something new will come up, and there's a lot of innovation. So we really have to ask questions and keep finding out and stay in the loop, and really kind of try to be unfazed by this sense of overwhelm, which is of course around us. We all have it, and I think when we recognize the power of individual actions, that changes. You're reducing some of the plastic in your father's house. You have no idea how much impact that has. That plastic, could be sitting on the shores of Indonesia. So you don't know where your plastic goes. So that one plastic bag you caught and you trapped it either as a recycling or in a proper garbage surface that put it in landfill. Yes, it creates leachate and it's not good. Plastic is not good, period. But you don't know the impact that could have had, So let's
please don't mind me interrupting. I believe Christina has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Christina.
Oh, no problem. I know you had made the comment about how one of the things that it sounded like we're going to learn is also what is recyclable or what isn't. And I was just going to offer that is something that I know would be really helpful for me, because I mean, like at home, I've got 4 different bins. I've got garbage, I've got food scraps, I've got plastic, and I've got paper. And I try to be like intuitive about what makes sense to me when I'm like, this seems like it's paper, this seems like it's plastic, and putting it in the right bin. But it's interesting that the city that I live in is so picky about what they classify as recyclable plastic or whatever. I know like in my city, they say if you order takeout from any restaurant, throw all of that in the garbage because we don't accept any of that as recycling. And I get frustrated by that because if I go out to eat and I get like a bowl of soup and the bowl of soup's in a plastic container, my mind is telling me, okay, this is plastic, it should go in the plastic bin. And yet my city is saying, oh, because it's takeout, we're not going to recycle it. And I don't know if it's just that they've just got really ridiculous rules or that there's something about takeout plastic that's different than regular plastics. So like, I get really confused by how strict my city is when I'm just trying to use my intuition and think like, okay, this is paper, this is plastic, it goes here, it goes here. So I feel confused and frustrated. So I'm looking forward to learning, what is the distinction and what can or can't be recycled.
Okay, so I totally hear you, Christina. And oh, we just lost you. I think you kind of went offline. Are you there, Christina?
Oh yeah, I just lowered my hand.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I mean, the thing is, I wish I could tell you it's exactly like this, but actually, maybe we can sort of locate ourselves a little differently, because these are actually big. We're dealing with like companies and corporations pushing products on us, okay? And we're in a bind, like, how do I get that bulk produce? Like, and maybe I have to use plastic. Maybe I can use compostable plastic. Maybe I have a jar, maybe I don't. Maybe I can go to a refillable store and, use the same thing. But sometimes as consumers, we're stuck between these really quick choices, especially a single parent, we just got to run and do stuff. And then, we're really grateful that we have a garbage service and they're, they have their own constraints because they take our stuff and then they either sell it or pass it on to a recycler. And sometimes there's a whole industry in that, and there are other considerations, and there are things that get sent and don't get sent. So we are kind of stuck between a bunch of different things, and it's frustrating, even the whole thing with the clamshells is just so frustrating. But if we, can stay dynamic about it and keep trying to investigate, okay, well, why are you not taking this? If we can try to understand, and sometimes places are in transition, like in Berkeley, you get, you bring your own cup, you buy a cup, you have to pay 25 cents. But then turns out there was no recycler who was recycling, even though they had the compostable cups. So the recycling industry is a mix. Some are money motivated, and a lot of them there's an organization called Amber, which is, they are mission-based recyclers, and they're really great, So we can also sort of stay in touch with what's going on with recycling and their pressures, and that everybody's kind of working on it together. And it's maybe a frustrating moment right now, but it could change. That's kind of what I'm going to say to you. I know it's not super helpful, okay? But the fact that you are questioning is really good, And I always say, like, pick up the phone and call your recycler, because every recycler handles different.
I didn't have a very successful conversation the other day.
And they will, and they ask them, why are you not recycling this, right? So yes, Ed.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are the ecology centers good local resource groups?
Yeah.
Or they're mixed, because everything is a matter of whoever's there and whatever they're advocating for. But in general, one could go to the recycling company, but they have their own sort of set of rules. But who else locally, if we're trying to gather, because I think it does change from city to city, county to county, town to town,
A lot of, California has, of course, been a leader. So you actually have zero waste departments in a lot of cities.
Okay.
And then we also have some really great recyclers here, some of these mission-based recyclers, the Ecology Center in Berkeley. So there's a lot of them, and you kind of like have to stay you have to do the research. You have to go online and say, okay, mission-based recyclers, it's AMBR, and we also have Recology, which is in Sonoma, Marin, and San Francisco, and they're very good too. And these companies are, they have an education department and they have great brochures, like, I mean, one of the things you could do is, read the brochure, right? Read it. I mean, it's got very good stuff in it. It's gonna really tell you, what's recyclable, where in the community, it'll tell you where to go, how to do your batteries. And, this is part of it, is like, it's important that we care, and it's almost great that we're upset and we're having all these emotions, because that's going to make us ask the questions and search, because this is an area that is, I don't know, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I mean, if you were in LA, you had backyard incinerators. Everybody had an incinerator in their backyard, and they were just throwing all their garbage and burning it. Yeah, Marcia's looking shocked. I was only outlawed in like 57, 59, 60. And that's when garbage service came in. So this idea that somebody's going to take care of my garbage. Did I just bump off here? What happened here?
You're fine.
I'm okay?
Yeah, you're good. Keep going.
Okay. So, yeah, this idea that, so sorry, something has happened to my page. Okay. Okay, I have no idea what happened. I'm just going to keep going. So, yeah, that somebody is going to take care of our garbage also is interesting, so we can't really take these things for granted. The moment you take for granted, then you discover, there's so many other hands in here. We're still in a capitalist society where, who's running what? I mean, I have to be careful about how much time I take with everything. Sorry, I'm having a little trouble here. Let's move this over. Oh, okay, I got it. Sorry, guys. I think I touched something on my screen, kind of just collapsed. Okay. So I'll just tell you really, I don't want to get completely off time-wise, but for example, milk cartons. I mean, how many of you, give me a show of hands, are recycling your milk cartons? Yeah, okay, yes. Okay, awesome.
Almond milk, yeah.
Okay, so so milk cartons actually, for the most part, sorry to say this, go to trash. They go to landfill. And why is that? Because they're actually white paper, which is totally recyclable, but they have a film of plastic. And the current recycler for milk cartons is near Mexico City. So for milk cartons recycled, they have to go in a shipped container all the way down to Mexico City. And most cities, well, San Francisco probably manages because they have such a huge volume, but a lot of, like Berkeley, their milk cartons have been going in trash, in landfill. So there's a really amazing guy, Tim DiMattia at Napa Recycling. And some of these people who are doing this recycling, well, they're wonderful and they're working on so many levels. He has this great idea. He's going to do a milk run where he's already picking up from St. Helena and Santa Rosa, where we go, our trash goes, Sebastopol goes to Santa Rosa. And he's offered to pick up from Berkeley so he can collect them and collect enough to put in a container. You see, and milk cartons take a lot of room. They start rotting. So they're a real problem for recycling. So just to say that people are working, LA, they're recycling the clamshell. That's fantastic. That might change over here. Berkeley Ecology Center, they are supporting a new law. It's like a truth in advertising to stop saying that everything recycles and all plastic recycles. They want to stop that. And then people are saying, no, but maybe clamshell recycling will come here. So it is a very dynamic industry, really. So I want to move forward.
Nidhi, may I just add a comment here from the chat? Kavita
Yes.
from Orlando, Florida is saying that in my county in Florida, they take out all the plastic food container, all plastic needs to be rinsed, milk carton needs to be trashed, and plastic jugs are okay for recycling, because we have a lot of different folks joining from the US as well as from India here. So I think all these perspectives are great. And I'm curious to also hear about the global, trash trade and the relationship of the US to, China and other countries.
Okay, coming up, Vidhu, coming up shortly. Vidhu has some idea where I'm going. So thank you, Vidhu. That was a good prompt there, like hurry on up. Okay. So yeah, and yes, to glass bottles, Carrie's writing about that. Absolutely. I really like that. Kavita, thank you for sharing about recycling in where you are in Orlando, and plastic jugs tend to be, the recycling triangle 1 and 2. So they do recycle, and every place is different. So, and we'll talk some more about this later. So basically, this is when we look at a community, these are the things that we're finding: plastic, glass, aluminum, which does recycle very well. There was a really great quote. I wish I had it. It was like, okay, you couch potatoes, listen up. One can of beer, recycling 1 can of beer can run your TV for 3 hours. Okay, so is like there are some things that are truly working well. Bottle recycling, glass bottles, aluminum cans, although some places don't do the glass. Okay, there are problems in different parts of the country. Paper, cardboard, and these things have value. They can be sold. So, recycling companies can sell them. Or if you're an industry or a company, you are actually leaving a lot of money on the table if you don't figure out how to recycle. So batteries, metal scrap, wood, car oil, paints, medicines. Now there's a lot of places have, household hazardous waste centers where you can go in certain hours and take these things, all kinds of, car oils and, different things. Mattresses can be recycled. Again, it depends where you are. And some places do not have that, but I have to say that we are quite advanced in this in Northern California and California. So when you look at a zero waste, when you try to do a zero waste plan, like Berkeley's in the middle of a zero waste plan, we actually have to go to the landfill, go to the trucks picking up household garbage and actually take it out and categorize it. And usually it falls in these categories. These are the categories. And then, what we're looking for, whether it's a company or whether it's a city or whether it's a country, if we want to improve our diversion rate. Diversion means how much of your garbage are you recycling, reusing, repurposing versus how much are you actually creating. So this is a quote by Annie Leonard. Can you see it?
I can't really read it. Why don't you read it, please?
Okay. There's no such thing as a way. When you throw something away, it must go somewhere. So as we're discussing, most things actually go to landfill. We have recycling. It's choppy. It's getting better in places, and it's still got to improve in places. And then we have compost, which is really the best way to handle all your organic materials. Does anyone know why compost is great? Why should we compost? Any ideas?
It's good for my garden.
There you go.
Plants.
Absolutely. It restores the topsoil, which is one of the things that we're losing.
Yeah.
It keeps carbon in the ground. Okay, it secures the carbon. It's also a non-toxic. It's not releasing any bad gases. It's the best way to move our food out of our system. What else are other things that people can do? Does anyone here do any upcycling? Do you know what upcycling is? Wave of hands. Upcycling is something that is happening a lot with fashion, and I saw there's a company called Fabmo, and they take designer tiles and all sorts of designer products, and they, kind of do things with them and create things with them and resell them. So upcycling is also a big deal with fabric. How can we move our fabric? As it turns out, there's a big fabric crisis. There's second hand. Yes, go ahead, please.
No.
Yes, Erica. Hi.
Hi. So I wanted to go back to composting real quick, and I need any suggestions anyone might have on how to do that in where I live. I have a carport and that's it. I don't have any outside. And I know that I probably could do it inside. I've heard that I can, but I just don't know how. So if anybody has any kind of resources, I'd really appreciate it.
Okay, I think there are probably a lot of resources, and let's Erica, can you hold on to that till the end? And maybe we could even take it offline, because there's a lot of composters that I mean, you can buy if you have, I mean, some people dig a hole in the ground and put their scraps in there, you know, like a foot or below. But then some people say, okay, can get rats because of that. So there are a lot of options, and let's talk of them. And I'm sure if I even open it up to the group, we can get some more ideas. So can we hold that question? If somebody can hold that, Vidhu?
Yeah, I'm noting the questions, and maybe we can have more questions in the Q&A at the end, because there's so much content to cover, honestly.
There's a lot of content, yeah. So so there's a lot, and you know, and there's now we have a lot of fix-it clinics, and this started in San Diego, and basically this is for household repair, household appliances, and you know, clothing, and people just getting together and fixing stuff. And there's people who know how to fix these things. You know, I remember the old days in India, you never had a broken radio. You always got your radio fixed. You always got your shoes fixed by the cobbler. You know, you always sewed up the holes in your, you know, in your school uniform, right? You can go and buy a new one. So these are all options that are growing. But there's a few dirty secrets that people don't talk about in the waste industry. And one of those is incinerators. There are a lot of incinerators in the world. And this is the old way of destroying garbage. And then sometimes they're, you know, called waste to energy plants. And it's just like a lot of blanket fog over the whole thing, and like casting it like something great, when actually the toxins and, you know, people are so sick from these things being in their neighborhood. And this is a big environmental justice issue, because even in the US, there's 72 incinerators that are still operating, and 80% of these are in environmental justice communities. That means the residents are low income, people of color, or both. And, you know, as you know, we have a lot of this NIMBY, not in my backyard. If somebody comes and tries to open some factory industry in my neighborhood, I'm going to protest and make sure that it goes somewhere. And guess what? It goes somewhere. And it goes to a neighborhood that is has no choice really but to accept it. So this is really a real thing, and people are still fighting to close these incinerators. You know, in fact, there were people in my class who were you know, there's an incinerator in Hawaii. I had no idea. You know, there's been a nasty incinerator in Baltimore. There's I think they managed to close that. Not entirely sure. But anyway, so this is a real problem. And the other sort of another dirty secret in garbage is that trash goes traveling. Trash goes abroad. My garbage goes to countries that I hope I'll get to visit. I'm still waiting to visit those countries. Garbage gets exported. And there's a huge global waste trade, and to the value of billions. Like China has a cumulative trade value of 57.6 billion. And guess to who's the biggest exporter of garbage?
Us.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. US stands for us.
US, yeah. And then what happened to China was that they were either not equipped to recycle, or they saw there was so much hazardous waste and contamination of the plastic that I think they had like, they imported like 80 million tons or something like that of plastic, like some huge like amount of plastic. And they, a lot of it had hazardous stuff, and they just buried it and threw it around. And 70% of it was just thrown, you know, in landfills or in valleys or places just around. And they had so much illness and so much, children getting sick and people getting respiratory illness. And finally, in 2017, they said, no, we're not going to take it. And in 2018, they banned like about 22 substances. And so in many ways, so other countries now are taking trash, Malaysia, Thailand, I think Singapore said no, India is taking trash. So this garbage is really sold and these countries are supposed to recycle it. But we know from India, are you recycling it? It's sitting, right? Most of it is sitting. And the same goes with, I'm not even going to get into detail with that, with the secondhand clothing, the fashion industry. And a big problem with the fashion industry is that nobody's saying what are the nylon fibers, what are the cotton, who's explaining what's in this fabric. So there's another really great law, SB 707, which is going to look for some, it's called environmental producer, extended producer responsibility. That is, a lot of people in recycling are working on that, making industries take back their products and recycling their own products. And we're hoping that that's going to make a big difference. I want to quickly just move on here, and I'm going to leave out a lot of stuff. I just, I'm not even going to, I don't think we have the time to talk about this, but, I don't need to say that who is one of the biggest per capita garbage producers in the world? One guess.
US.
Yes, of course. And we don't have, we don't have such a huge population compared to a lot of the countries in the world, but our pollution is per person pollution, which, is not actually fair. May not be me and you, but how much we create in the world nationally is really massive. So I want to talk a little bit about landfills. I think EPA just took out incineration as an okay way to dispose of garbage, because incineration is absolutely not okay. Landfills are actually a dreadfully toxic place. And one of the biggest issues with landfills is that there is a lot of food and organic material mixed into the landfill. And this is decomposing. This combination of plastic and trash and food is creating a lot of methane. In fact, you can see this from outer space. You can see the methane coming from landfills in different parts of the world. And methane is like way more kind of a much worse gas in terms of impact than carbon dioxide. And it's short-lived. It lives about 10, 12 years, but is already responsible for about, half a degree Celsius rise in temperature globally. So there's a big move right now to kind of make sure, and this is SB 1383, which was enacted in 2016. It's called the Reducing California's Landfill Methane Emissions Law. And basically means everybody has to compost. Compost has to be provided, a place to compost has to be provided. And we have to, anything got to do with a restaurant or handling food, if you have edible food, you have to share it. So nothing happened during COVID, but now the machinations are working where people are, you can share it with so many different organizations working with homeless people, socioeconomically disadvantaged people. There's actually good food that needs to be shared, food from farms that needs to be shared, and this food needs to get out of the landfill, and food scraps need to get into compost and out of the landfill. So this is something that we can actually make a difference on. And this is hopeful, So I'm sure you'll hear more about this. So moving right along. Because we're running our time, we have a movie share, and this is about plastic. And I think it's going to help answer some questions. And I don't know if we'll have enough time to talk.
Well, we're a little short. If we show the movie, that'll kind of end the talk. And I think that we can share the link for the film that people can watch on their own. And then I think it's always important to go, what can I do?
Okay.
Because, that's the key to it all.
Okay.
And, but I will share the video link, and that way I think it's best use of our time today.
Okay. So I would really hope that everybody sees this movie. It's just 10 minutes and it's made by the mission-based recyclers, Amber, the organization. And the basic gist of this movie, if I can tell it to you in 2 minutes, is that we all know, we've all seen images of what plastic is doing, the big garbage plastic patches gyres in the oceans. You have dead whales, you have fish with plastic, you have birds, becoming extinct because they're being fed plastic by the mother birds thinking it's food. So plastic is the most famous sort of campaign that we had was, we've all seen the image of the turtle with the straw in its nose. And that has been a very successful campaign in California. It's not completely successful, but so many places now have, recyclable or paper straws. So plastic is really a byproduct of the petrochemical industry. It's like an oil and gas byproduct. It's a residual product, and it's just been pushed and pushed and pushed. And on the other hand, it's also been very helpful in every kind of industry, and every plastic is so important as well. So one of the things that this film talks about really is that the recycling industry is really being, slammed and being used by a lot of these plastic producers because they have created this idea. See, we think our ideas are unique. All these ideas are coming from somewhere. As this is really advertising, it's been pushed on us to see that triangle that says recyclable. It's got a number in it. Every plastic piece has that. It should have that. Now, this has been used by industry to create more plastic and create the idea, well, this is recyclable. And the truth is, sorry to say, it is not. Most of these things are not recyclable. So just if you see that triangle, prime packaging, that doesn't mean it's recyclable. Okay. Only 1 and 2 do recycle. And we've talked about the clamshells. They recycle in LA, I believe you can recycle them. And so basically, this film really goes through the things actually that do recycle and most of the things that don't. And this is an area that, like I said, people are in the industry are working on. And the best thing is really to stay informed because, you may want something to be recycled, but you have to see what your garbage handling service, what are they recycling and what are the options of what you can do. And, let's not forget, because it feels really like frustrating that, oh my God, I want to recycle all this, and I only got 2, jugs here that recycle, right? So, but you have to remember this is one of my favorite saying, and I don't know if you read it. It's only one straw, said 8 billion people. Yes. So, so this is something that we can talk about now. Is we have about 10 minutes, and just keep in mind waste is a really important area, and it is like third to like oil and gas and animal agriculture, in terms of impacting climate change. And there are 8 billion of us. And there's another saying that I really like, which is we don't need a handful of people doing zero waste perfectly. We need millions of people doing it imperfectly. I don't know if you've seen that. So yeah, I just want to open the floor and just let's talk about what else. I was really happy to hear from Erica that you want to compost. That's fantastic. A really good person with compost is Christine Chris Bowman. She composts. She's got earthworms in her backyard. So we can move some of this conversation offline as well after we finish with our talk. So I wanted to say, are you coming up with any ideas about things that you could do, like tiny things, maybe tiny things, maybe big things. I can share a few things that I do, and then I would like to open up the conversation. One of the things that I do is when I cut a plastic bag, of grain or rice or whatever, and I'm opening it, I don't cut it all the way. I just cut enough to pour it, and I leave that top part attached because that it's very hard to secure the small pieces of plastic. So just keep the whole thing together. Okay. So
a comment from Christine Bowman.
Yes.
And then there's also a lot of sharing happening in the chat, but in the interest of time, can we just keep comments to about, a minute at most?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Over the years, I have had different kinds of compost piles and different ways of composting for my garden, and taking the scraps that I have from, cooking and that kind of thing. And the best thing that I found that worked for me was worm boxes. And they actually have they're boxes that are stacked on top of each other. They've got legs, and you just pour the food waste into the top part, and then the worms just process it. And every so often I use the worm castings on my garden. The rats got into my compost pile. So, and I like worm bins a lot. So that's my thing. I also have an indoor compost dehydrator, and I use that if I have too much waste. I'm a little bit conflicted, just because it does use energy to dry it. And then it's not exactly what I would call compost, but it would be very useful for somebody who's got, an apartment and can't do anything else besides that. That's my tip for the day.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, there are actually a lot of options. There's some suggestions on the chat as well for composting. And we used to do composting in these earthen, they're really beautiful, and they're so cheap in India, these layers of earthen, and they have a sort of a grill, and you put newspaper and you put your top layer, and after a week you move the top one below, so it keeps composting and you keep moving through it. And some of these options are cleaner and less messy. And I say that because sometimes you're in a rush, and so the little bit of research, and there's a lot of options. And thank you so much, Michelle. I see you've shared a lot of options. Yes, Michelle?
Yeah, I'm this is very interesting to me, because just going on the Zero Waste Marin site, seeing that they break it down between residents, businesses, schools, news and events, and that there's all these tips on how to reduce waste, battery, take back, plant care, Christmas tree, recycling. I didn't realize that there were all these resources, especially the fats, oils, and grease, because that going down the sink and clogging the sink all the time. This is great. And I know that there's a lot. I live out in West Marin, and a lot of times when there's get-togethers, festivals, Christmas, fairs, things like this, they have people that are doing the fashion recycling, and people will bring stamps and patches for clothing and things like this.
Right.
So that's great that that's happening. It would be great if there was someone or some, I guess it's really per wherever you live, but it's nice to know that there's some lists of resources and brochures that are available. I didn't even know that I could look up that. So thanks for sharing that.
Well, Michelle, that's awesome, because really, I think that is something I'm hoping we can take out of this, collective meeting, is just look it up, and if you can't look it up, phone them, just call them up, call up your local, call your city government. Say, I want to talk to whoever's dealing with waste, so that's the kind of agency we want in this area, and that is also the power we have. None of this happened just because somebody decided. It happened because people said we had enough of the smoke, we had enough of the backyard incinerators. People are leading this. Anyone else? Anything else? And I want to thank Kavita. Yeah, mattresses. That's really, Kavita had a post on mattresses. Mattresses create so much pollution, and we're so grateful here that we're able to get our mattresses recycled where we are, Northern California. Anybody else? Anything I can share? I created myself a use me bag, an upcycled use me bag, and my really, one of my daily crimes is coffee. So I take coffee cups and coffee lids. I wash my coffee containers, and I tell you honestly, I may not have used this as much as I feel happy when I see it. Okay, so maybe it's even psychological, but I'm like, yes, I have a lid. I don't need that lid, carry it to my car and put my own lid on top. So Yeah, that's just a tiny thing. And then we all know about plastic water bottles, right? You carry your own cup, plastic water bottles, try to get a metal or a glass, or, try to avoid. Take your own water, The amount of energy that goes into creating a plastic bottle has nothing to do with that little amount of water that you're drinking, Anyone else? Anything else?
Florence had a question earlier about the Clover milk cartons.
Yes.
It's in the chat, and then Dr.
I don't know the question. Maybe you want to repeat it, Florence? Florence, not sure. Okay, Ed, what were you saying?
Well, I think this is a tremendous conversation.
Oh, yes, Florence.
And I
Hi.
think it's really wonderful that so many people are sharing. I think that's really the most exciting kind of way to learn is together. And what I really hope that we can get from this is A, it's certainly a big problem. We knew that. B, we need to get educated on practical things we can do. And then C, we need to educate others. So I think the overwhelm gets relieved when we go to a school group, when we go to a parent group, when we go to a church group, when we go to, wherever there's people, it's a conversation. And what I think you did very well, Nidhi, is give us some perspective on the problem. Ask us to take some responsibility for, well, what can you do? We can all do something. It's mindful consumption. That's the start, I'm not buying everything under the sun. I'm buying things I only need, and then, all that. But then I think it's like, encouraging me to be more active in bringing this into a wellness conversation. Because for me, wellness is not me. I'm pretty well, but everything else is unwell. So the environment is a huge influence on us, and the environment is getting wasted and trashed by the second. And then we absorb whatever comes through the environment, the water, the air, the soil, the food, the smoke. It's so, we have to kind of get power here that we do make a difference, we do count. And this thing about, one straw for 8 billion people, those are nice kind of statements about we don't need that straw. The kids don't need that straw, but the companies, they just give it because that's what people want, they think. And also supporting the companies that are zero waste oriented and have them use that as a marketing tool. We care about the earth, we care about the people, we care about our community, and this is how we care about it. I'll go there. So we could give up, but giving up isn't a very good answer. And then we could get educated and educate others, and we can learn more with you and with each other, and use this as kind of a challenge, like, yeah, I've got to make a challenge to be better at this, do better with this, not just throw stuff in the trash, knowing somebody else will take it out of the trash and put it somewhere else. No, I can do better than that. So mindful, my mindfulness becomes, super relevant for each of us individually. And then with our friends and neighbors, did you know that that's really yucky trash? Did you know that trash just creates problems for yourself and other people? No, I didn't know. I wasn't thinking about it. I just wanted the candy inside the candy bar. Well, so there's a way to do it that is graceful and that is non-judgmental and that actually makes people think twice about their choices. Because mostly we're unhappy and we buy stuff to be happy. So if we find ways to be happy that are not consumptive, but creative and restorative, we're actually starting to get a little more, power. And other people go, I like that. I like that. So that's what Bowman Wellness really is about. It's community, and it's a conscious community. And I invite all of you folks to join the community. It's free, and there's lots of great stuff that we're doing all the time. And, you know, the summer we have workshop series, and the summer we have lunch and learns. And, you know, we're available to come to where people are, as well as invite people to meet us here on virtual space. But, you know, we've pretty much hit the edge of the hour. And this conversation is just beginning. It's far from over. But Nidhi, do you want to share your contact information if people want to reach back to you?
Okay, I'll put it on the chat, okay?
Yeah.
Um,
The Bowman Wellness is moving into a new website, which will be bowman-wellness.org. And I hope that will launch in a minute, you know, like any day now. And then we're moving into a new platform. So we won't be doing Zoom. We'll be working through a video platform with a justice-oriented group of communities that's called Powered by Action. So again, I encourage you to find out about who we are and stay in touch and be part of what we're doing, because we're looking for people like you to be ambassadors, which means, you know, you're representing the value system that we're doing and bringing it to different groups. Because if we can go group to group, we have more impact than person to person. And again, to find out more, you can go bowmanwellness.com. That's the old website to join, or bowman-wellness.org. That's the new one. And, you know, be part of this thing, because the waste conversation is obviously good, because we have so much waste and trash matter in our own cells now that's causing obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancer, and a variety of other health problems that people don't connect the dots to. That it's basically disturbant, non-biological material that's creating these really accelerating disease processes. So we have a lot of zero waste in our mind and our body and our spirit to really work with.